back to another exciting episode here on Hephzibah Stories. I've had an amazing week. I hope your week has been great as well. So on this episode, we'll be discussing maintaining relevance. You know that there are several sort of companies or businesses, or maybe someone just starting up something. There's actually probably at this point millions of them every year. And actually in Ireland in May 2014, there were over 2,000 startup companies in just that month. But then the question is, how much of these companies or how much of this startup, whatever it is, actually do last, and not only last, be relevant till the end. A study in the UK showed that the percentage of the survival rate of companies between 2010 and 2015 fell from 87% in the first year to just over 40% in the fifth year. So you can see that although lots of things are starting, not everything gets to make it to the finishing line. We think talking about maintaining relevance, there are some companies that come to mind, or brands should I say, like Coca-Cola or Apple or whatnot. So some of these companies have been, Coca-Cola has been around since the 19th century, but it's still here. So what are these companies doing that other companies like Nokia, for example, which used to be the it thing, but it's no longer the it thing now, what are they not doing? So we'll be looking at all of that with our guest today, who will meet after the break. Hello everyone, welcome back to Hephzibah Stories. We're discussing maintaining relevance with Pastor Paul Orimolusi, who is the pastor in charge of RCTG Inspiration House Cork, and is also my pastor. So we're very happy to have you here, sir. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting us come because we're in your office.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so we are discussing maintaining relevance, and I guess the first place to start is defining or trying to explain what relevance is and what relevance is not. Say, for example, if someone had even a company or something, does that necessarily mean that the person is relevant to God's eyes and to the society?
Okay, what I will say is that if I want to define a relevance, I may do it in form of description, describing what it is. You know, I would say relevance is just fulfilling the purpose for which a man is created.
Yeah.
For example, a cutlass becomes irrelevant if anyone tries to use it maybe to fly a jet. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So relevance is just fulfilling the purpose for which a person is created. That is it.
Exactly.
And we are all created for God's pleasure. And God has called us the light of the world and the salt of the earth. It means that, you know what that means. Yeah. So what that is saying to us is that if talking about relevance, it's just fulfilling the purpose for which the person is created. Anyone that is at the center of the purpose of God for his life automatically will become relevant.
Wow. So just finding that purpose, fulfilling it, makes you relevant.
That is it.
And how can we find this purpose?
You just have to call on the God of relevance. The maker is the one that knows. He has the blueprint for our life. We ask him. For example, Apostle Paul, when he was Saul, he was doing a different thing in his own way, thinking that he was doing the right thing. But that wasn't the purpose of God for his life. And when he now had that encounter with God, he asked God, what do you want me to do? And the moment he keyed into that, you know what was said.
Very relevant person. Even after his death, the work
up till now, that is it. Continues.
So that the key point is just asking God, because God is the God of relevance. And then obviously when God gives you, that purpose, like Apostle Paul, he didn't go back to being Saul, he didn't go back to killing the Christians and all. He decided to walk in that purpose, and we can see his relevance.
That is it.
Like years and years later.
That is it.
So that's good. So anyone who's thinking of how to be relevant, ask God. God is the God of relevance, and He will show you how to become relevant. Now, moving a bit a step forward, there's so many people who started out working out in God's purpose for their lives.
Right.
For example, in the Bible, Demas, the man that was kind of assisting Apostle Paul. But at some point, Apostle Paul mentioned that he has left him and gone into the world. So clearly, starting out right is not the only factor that is needed.
Yeah.
People, on the long run, we need to know how to maintain this relevance. So how can we, from your own experience and from the Bible, which is
I would say that it is always good to appreciate the God of relevance. Anything that anyone doesn't appreciate, we depreciate. From time to time, you must have heard from me, and I don't care what people will think about me. I do think about where God Almighty brought me out from. So I wouldn't forget that. Just from the jungle, from nowhere, from the bush. Imagine, in a week, you want us to spend, if not 7 days, 6 days in the bush, in the jungle. Now, the same person, God saved my soul, and not only that, using me by His grace and mercy for His glory to affect lives, all kinds, in this part of the world. So that is, I used to refer back to where God Almighty brought me from, just to appreciate Him. That, Lord, I thank you. So one has to appreciate the God of relevance, the God that has made it possible. That is the first thing.
On that note, I just remembered, when Jesus healed the 10 lepers, and only one came back to give Him thanks, and then He said, like, your healing is made whole.
Yeah.
So I guess appreciating God kind of seals off your relevance on a regular basis. So,
that is it.
Yeah.
Very important. Very important. Because no one can receive anything except it is given to him from above. Just to always appreciate that God that has made it possible.
Yeah.
That is it.
What else can we do?
I'm
sure there's so many things.
I have a few points to mention here. And the other thing is to take time to study. Take time to study. We're talking about maintaining relevance. Now, it means that it is possible for somebody to be relevant, but never have the opportunity to keep that relevance. So, we must take time to study about the people that were relevant before, and they are falling away.
Exactly.
So, we must learn from their mistakes. We must take time to study how did this one become relevant, and how did they miss it. Now, when we now know what they did that made them to become relevant, and how they have now become irrelevant, so we must take time to study them so that we will not fall into their mistakes. The mistakes that they made, we shouldn't. It is time, it is good for us to know all those things so that we will not fall the same pit.
That's the basis of this series called Hephzibah Stories, because I find in my own personal life that I learn a lot from people, and I don't see any need doing something that someone has done the same way that they did it and failed. That just doesn't make sense. So before doing anything or wanting to become something, it's good to look at, like you said, not only how they did it right, but where they got it wrong. Because that's the more important one, where they got it wrong. And on this series, we're trying to highlight, the good and the wrong parts that people have done, so that we can learn and basically glorify God and continue to be relevant.
That is it. That is it.
And that's why we're talking to you, so that we can learn how to be relevant.
So, and the next thing is to run away from sin. Because the Bible says that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people.
Wow.
To any people. So when we talk, nobody can be relevant with reproach. So sin is a reproach to anybody, any people. So what that implies is that we want to maintain relevance. We run away from sin, because sins are contaminants. Sin can maim, can cut short, can destroy, can sentence a person to hell. That is the reason why. Let's give this example of Samson. Samson, even from the mother's womb, God Almighty has spoken beautiful things about him. And when he started living and was doing fine, he was heavily anointed. In other words, he was relevant. But in the process, he didn't know. He decided to lower the guard.
The standard.
And before you know it, he did evil. He committed sin. And he thought, the Bible says in Judges chapter 16 verse 20, Judges 16 verse 20, said, I will arise like the other time, but never knew that the God of relevance has already deserted him. So it's to run away from every appearance of evil, according to the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 22. And the other thing that I will say is that being a human being, if there is any slightest, I repeat again, slightest mistake, I'm not saying something big, slightest, immediately the person must correct it straight away. The person must correct it. And let me give you an example. Because we have an enemy, is always looking our downfall. Apostle Peter, when Jesus Christ said, who do you say that the Son of Man is? Blah blah, and said you were this, people were saying you were John the Baptist, you were Moses, you are Elijah, blah blah. And I said, who do you say that I am? It was Peter that answered, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Oh, Peter, oh, great. Even Jesus Christ said, it wasn't flesh and blood that revealed it, but God himself, the Father. Just maybe a few minutes, if we read the scripture, the next episode, discover that this same man was called the devil. Was called the devil. Why? Jesus Christ was talking about how he would die on the third day, he would go to Jerusalem. He said, never. It means that the devil had already entered and made him to do so. So we have to be very, very sensitive and very careful. And Jesus Christ had to rebuke him. He said, get thee behind me, Satan. Can you see that? So we just have to be very sensitive and very careful. Any slightest is straight away. And let me give you an example. My own personal example. There was a time, my former secretary, a couple of years ago, was trusting God for a legal stay with her husband in New Zealand. So she tried all she could nothing worked out for her. And we agreed together to pray. And we prayed. And God, in His mercy, answered that prayer. And she shared the testimony with me that they said, contrary to the policy of that country, they've approved a visa. He was thinking of going back to Africa. And when I was on the altar, wanting to use that as a testimony to encourage one or two people in the church. And the way she told me was that they sent an email. And when I was using that as an example, do you know, I added my own. I said, with the email was sent and a phone call was made. Right there, the Holy Spirit nudged me. That wasn't it. You added your own. And right there, I said to the congregation, it wasn't like that. This is how it was. I added mine. Now, and the congregation didn't know what was going on. But we need to be very sensitive and amend. You understand what I'm saying?
And on that note, that just shows that the Holy Spirit is very important in helping us maintaining relevance, because He was the one that nudged you, to quickly correct that mistake.
That is
and
it.
we can't be relevant without the Holy Spirit.
That absolutely. That is it. And the other thing is to let us know that, well, without prayer, Jesus Christ started with prayer. He ended. We do sing, prayer is the key, prayer is the key, prayer is the master's key. Anyone who fails to pray will become a prey.
That is your line.
You don't pray, you will become a prey. There is no two way about it.
You become a P-R-E-Y.
Yeah.
Pray.
It sounds so similar in pronunciation. Pray. P-R-A-Y. It's different from P-R-E-Y. If you don't pray, you will become a prey. Jesus Christ, who's supposed not to pray at all, did pray. So we want to maintain relevance. We need to throw ourselves back to God. Lord, I need your help. Do you know that prayer is like saying that, Father, I can't do anything without you. I need your help. It's a pity that many people, many Christians, are not doing that today. You think they use God as extra will. And without prayer, we can do nothing. Because, like I said, the temptation is there. If you don't pray, how will you have power to overcome temptation? Remember, it was after Jesus Christ fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. He was led of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Can you see? If he hadn't prayed, can you imagine? So prayer is cannot be overemphasized for us to maintain relevance.
Today I have this book called Discipline Dreaming. And now I didn't read the full book, but I'm reading the summary of it, and I thought I'd share some interesting things. So to begin the discipline dreaming process, develop a written creativity brief which articulates the situation at hand and the creative idea you're trying to come up with. The ask phase, so there's 5 phases of discipline dreaming, which is ask, prepare, discover, ignite, and launch. The ask phase involves posing questions, exploring possibilities, and using your curiosity to fully engage your organization's creative thinking abilities. And the prepare phase, it says, in athletes and musicians warm up so they can perform well, you need to do something comparable if you aspire to generate creative ideas. There's so much information in this book that I can't even deal with in this episode, so I'll advise you to actually pick it up and read. Or you're lazy like myself, just read the summary of it.